Welcome back to Gruber Motor Company. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome to the Gruber Morning Show.
Yeah, the background today, again, artificial intelligence. We love what it produces. It's a good, clean background in a high rise with skyscrapers outside, and it's just amazing what we can conjure up with the correct prompt. Looks like we've got a question immediately here. Similarity up, smoothness down.
No, that is a note for
That's
Jesse.
just a note for
Yeah,
Jesse.
you got to
for us
scroll that there,
Oh,
Richard.
you guys are messing with me. There you go.
Well, that's a good welcome back for you, Pete.
Yeah.
Glad to have you back.
It's your first day, Pete, back. We have to pull some jokes, okay?
There we go. Yeah, I did want to say something about that. Just got back from vacation. I was gone for 2 weeks or something like that. And I was watching you guys sitting there in a chateau in France in the wine country region. And, I was just very impressed. You guys knocked it out of the park. And, for upper management like me, watching the staff just take over and make things run is extraordinarily rewarding. For the small-minded business owners, that can be disconcerting, but that's certainly not the way I'm wired. I really appreciate what you guys did, and again, it was just over the top. My brother was watching part of it too, and
Cool.
yeah. And if you think about the technology, here I was 9,000 miles away or something like that, and it was like we were sitting here talking to each other with these podcasts.
Just amazing. Yeah, Richard, kudos to Richard, kudos to Victor on Wednesdays. They made it work, man. They sure did. And I think we could feel the cool breezes from France from here.
Thank you, Pete. Those high praises coming from you, and I totally enjoyed it. I had a great time being back in the seat.
It was palpable. I sense you guys were continuing having a good time, and that's what this is all about. And we're providing good information, and but we really appreciate our audience. I know we say that often, but probably not enough. It's the audience that really make this thing work.
Oh yes.
The questions, the participation, the collaboration, and we don't pretend we know everything. So we're looking for you guys to help out oftentimes. And what's really rewarding is when we watch the questions and we see the audience answering each other at times.
Yeah.
Is this a real question coming in now? You guys still messing with me?
I don't know if it's a real question, but it is a question.
All right. Instagram. Whoops. Wired. Looks like our screen is flickering a bit. There we go. Wired Gear Pro. Welcome. He says, any ideas where I can get an engine for my Navara D40 2009 PIZ? I don't know what that is. Anybody here know what that is?
I'm pulling up a Navara D40 online right now, and it's a Nissan pickup trucks. And it's been used over in Australia.
Okay.
So at the moment, I am not sure where we would be able to get an engine for that. Here in the States, that's called the Nissan Frontier.
Oh, okay.
That gives you an idea. It's their compact pickup.
The Australian version.
And it looks like it's the Australian version. Yep.
Yep. And our expertise is typically related to electric vehicles. So although I'm somewhat familiar with the ICE world, having restored cars for decades, I've been out of that for a decade. And not my area of expertise anymore. But thank you for the question. YouTube Exploration says, guess who's back?
Hey, glad to have you back. It's been a little while since we've heard from you, and so glad to see you back.
Yeah, it was fun, guys. What I don't recommend is that plane travel. Oh, my God. Spending 10 to 12 hours in airports.
Well,
And,
Pete, you didn't get one of those first class ones where you can lay down and do all that?
no, you know what? And I look at those. They don't look that comfortable. I think by the time you get to corporate private jet level, then you've got something going for you.
Sure.
But, even those guys in first class, because I'm not that big, it just didn't look that comfortable. My wife did upgrade us, though, to business class,
Okay.
which gives you more leg room because she's got a bunch of free points for the company she works with. And but despite that, it's just painful sitting there for 9 hours without being able to really move. And trying to sleep and you can't stretch and all that. But
So you guys flew straight through. You didn't have layovers or anything?
we did. We went to Atlanta. That was like 4 or 5 hours.
Atlanta, that's right.
The problem, though, is by the time you get to these airports, you don't just simply walk on your next plane. You now have layovers. You've got customs issues. You've got to go through the scanners again. And the ultimate silliness was in Germany, where they made us do this stuff twice. The passport, the scanning thing.
See, that's interesting. I thought TSA was like an American thing because of
Well,
9/11 and all that.
Yeah, well, that's what they blamed it on. They said, you went through ours, but the reason you have to do all this again is because of TSA. It's your country that is demanding this. So they had an excuse for it. But anyway, the trip was wonderful. Aside from the plane travel and the south of France, there were vineyards 50 kilometers in any direction. My God, I'm talking metric, 50 kilometers. And it was. But the interesting thing about that is France, for many, for decades, hundreds of years, has been the wine capital of Europe.
Right.
It's shifting. Global warming is changing all of that. The ultimate wine growing areas are moving north. And the UK now, there's a lot of investment going in where there are vineyards being created and planted there in anticipation of it continuing to get worse for France.
You would think it's a slow enough, global warming is a slow enough change, even though they talk about it being historically fast. It's not like next year it's going to be 5 degrees warmer than this year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be time. That makes sense.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about the trip, since this is an EV-based podcast, here in Phoenix, if you're driving, you'll see a Tesla every 2 to 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, we would go a half a day without seeing one. And in all, I think we counted maybe 30 Teslas the entire time we were in France and Germany. And Switzerland, actually, for that matter.
Wow. And that, in spite of the fact that the Model Y for the first half of the year was the best-selling model of vehicle, regardless of type, in Europe for this year.
Yeah.
In the first 6 months.
It just shows the large amount of ICE vehicles that are still permeating that part of the world,
Yeah. And just what a market change that's going to be over the next few years.
This is probably a good segue into the Greenhyde portion. Greenhyde is, of course, the German Tesla manufacturing facility that really had a hard time coming up to speed because of all of the restrictions and the bureaucracy in Germany. Unlike Shanghai, which was operational from dirt to functioning in just under 1 year. It took the Germans over 2 years to finally get past all the red tape. But it is now, of course, it is the economic powerhouse in that region.
Uh-huh.
And Tesla wants to double production up to 1 million cars per year, which will now make it the largest auto plant in Germany. Now, you have to think about this. What was it, 15 years ago, Tesla was a nothing. It was on the verge of bankruptcy.
Yeah. And
here, 15 years later, there has never been a car company that has grown this rapidly and become this successful this quickly.
Well, and if I remember right, even the Wolfsburg manufacturing facility by Volkswagen, that's been, the king of the hill, as it were, for Germany for decades, only makes 800,000 cars a year.
Yeah, yeah. My son Peter went there, by the way. It's a very impressive plant, and you're right. It was the automotive powerhouse, or one of them, in Germany.
Sure.
Current production, by the way, at Greenhyde, or Germany Tesla Giga, is 5,000 cars per week. They plan to go to 20,000 cars, and they are now running again into regulation issues. There are protesters outside talking about groundwater issues. Fortunately, they've left the lizards and the frogs alone now. I guess they're happy in the forest, but it is about water now. But Tesla, being progressive, is solving that problem as well. They say they're going to recycle all of the water in that plant. So the environmentalists should, be satisfied with that.
Well, that's impressive as well. And the environmentalists seem to think that they're anti-progress, but Tesla as a company is mostly on the side of the environmentalists, I would think.
Yeah. And in order to get there, there may be some compromises necessary, but you have to look at the larger gains that are made.
Sure. I assume that they're going to have to build some additional facility there in order to accommodate the 20,000 cars a week.
Exactly. And what they're talking about is a facility now that will be as large as 60 football fields.
Wow.
You think about our football field here in Glendale, the size, how massive that is. Now multiply that times 60 and you get a sense for what kind of scale they're going to need to generate 1 million cars.
Now, when they talk football fields, are they talking what we call in America soccer fields, which are even larger than our Americanized football fields?
That's a good question, yeah. This was a U.S. article, so they were probably talking about that game with the oblong ball.
Sure. Okay.
All right. So one of the Facebook sites that is run by Ray Johnson, it's Tesla BMS _ U029, and what it's named after is that error that you get with your Tesla Model S, Model X battery when it runs into problems.
Sure.
And the typical solution is if you can find a company like us that can rebuild and repair, you can save something, but the typical replacement cost is around $20,000, and that's a real problem for most people that have a $30,000 to $35,000 car. Well, Ray has been very good about keeping us updated, and he alerted us to the fact a couple of months ago that Tesla's documentation seems to have a discrepancy or some conflicting information about charging rate.
Mm-hmm.
And they had migrated, of course, to the newer type lithium iron phosphate cells, which you can charge to 100%. Problem is the literature was updated, but they forgot about, apparently, all of the lithium ion customers were charging to 80% as the preferred and safe method. So he came to us, we alerted Tesla, and it took a couple of months or so, but they have now changed their documentation. And it now says, and I quote, refer to the information on the vehicle touchscreen, navigate to controls and then to charging, or in your mobile app, touch the charging icon for recommended daily and trip charging limits.
Well, sure. I remember on my Model S, there's that touch screen that has the daily drive limits, and I think mine goes to 90%. Mm-hmm. And then you have the trip limits, and what Tesla recommends now is, I think, sufficiently generic to direct the person to the right spot in their car, and each individual car does have a daily versus trip recommendation.
Right. And as Tesla told us, they said, pay more attention to what your screen is telling you, because each car is updated to the preferred charging method for the vehicle rather than any old documentation you may have, like owner's manuals or print.
Right. Well, thank you, Ray, again, for helping to bring this particular issue up. That's something that we had not seen until Ray brought it up.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ray.
Instagram, DJ VIP 510 says, tour life isn't easy. Customs, LOL.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. I don't know how people can handle it. At one point, so you got me going again.
Oh, yeah.
Here comes a Pete rant, guys.
Record those timestamps.
Here we are. We've been on the plane for 9 hours. We're stiff. We're sore. We're hungry. All of that. And the next thing you know, we've got to stand in a cattle call line that is a zigzag type process with about 20 or so lines that takes you over an hour to get through to show them your passport. And my first reaction was, my God, where is AI? Why are we allowing humans to be involved in this? The guys that stand behind the counter there, and they really don't want to be there. And yeah, let me see your passport. Then they look at your face and they say, yeah, okay, it matches. Or they see something that they've been trained to look for, and you get detoured into a room with some local police officers, which is, of course, is rare, but that's one of the detours. And but anyway, that's part of this type of international travel at this point. And honestly, I can't wait until AI gets involved. At one point, they even had a screen as you were walking toward the humans that were now looking at your passport picture. And you stood in front of the screen. It had little mirrors on it and fancy type optics. And the next thing you know, your face pops up on a screen from facial recognition. Well, this is probably a tandem type thing where they don't trust the technology yet, so the human is involved. But eventually, I think they're going to replace the human, which is what everybody's afraid of with AI, and thankfully so, because that is a process that is painful for any traveler.
Oh, it's terribly painful. My last trip to Europe was clear back in 2001, before all the security, before all of the headaches that we have to go through. And
Yeah.
even then, here I am with my wife running through the Glasgow airport because we only had like an hour and 5 minutes between flights.
Right. Yeah.
And we're thinking, okay, we know that we're going to have to spend a few minutes going through customs. Even back then with the lighter security, we were the last ones on the flight to the U.S.
Is that right?
And
Yeah.
we got off. We were one of the first ones off the flight from. In this case, it was Italy,
Yeah.
coming through the airport, and got through customs, got in. They were waiting for us, and we were. I think there were maybe 2 or 3 people after us, and then they closed the door. Good news was, we leave Italy at noon and we get home at 6 o'clock.
Mhm.
But holy cow, I don't even want to do it now.
Yeah. At one point I was standing next to a TSA official waiting for my wife to get through, and she didn't clear properly. So they had to redo it. And I'm bored, and I'm standing here next to this guy. And so I thought about saying something like, I remember in the last century, I used to be able to take a pocket knife into an airport. Nobody checked anything, and you just got on the plane, right? And I thought, no, that's probably not a good
Probably
thing to
not.
say at that point, because
Next
I'd
thing
be
you know-
detained. Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're asking you if you want a private room for the pat down you're about to get.
Right. And do you have a pocket knife now? How do we know? Bring the dog.
Was that around the same time where you could just light up inside of an airplane?
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. And it was
Smoke
miserable if
cigars or cigarettes.
if you were a non-smoker, it was miserable because that air, although they try to bring in fresh air, it was recirculated for the most part.
Totally.
And that was, but as a kid, I don't know if you guys, well, no, you're too young. This group here, maybe, you sit in a car in the wintertime, it's colder than heck outside, and somebody lights up inside that cabin. And it was perfectly normal. The kids had to deal with secondhand smoke.
The worst thing about it, I had a family member that smoked, and at least they were kind enough to crack the window open and have the little side wing window
Oh,
open.
yeah, little vent.
Yeah, the little vent window. But man, if you were starting to get sick or something, you were having trouble breathing anyway, and then that smoke, don't even get me started.
Yeah. So some things have improved and some things have not.
So Instagram, Elon Musk 2469 says hi.
Elon, thank you for finally joining us. We've been trying to
It's
get you on the
about
show
time.
for some time. Yeah. He's waving hi. Well,
Yes.
thank you, Elon. Appreciate it. Instagram, did we already do? Oh, Wired Gear Pro says, thanks very much. Well, you're more than welcome.
You're very welcome. And then on YouTube, that guy 9 has a question for us. He says, how will electric trucks be able to pull landscape and utility trailers job site to job site?
Well, I'm not sure what the difference between an ICE pickup truck and an EV would be with that application. There are, of course, EVs pulling campers and recreational vehicles and utility trailers already.
Well, one of the things that I could think about, though, and I do think it's a challenge, legit. On a 300-mile range, Ford Lightning
Mhm.
is known to have its range drop to somewhere between 100 and 120 miles when it's pulling a trailer of just about any kind. They're physically capable of pulling it, but it uses so much extra energy for that momentum that the range drops precipitously. How many miles does a landscaper drive in a day as they go from job to job?
Good point. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a legit concern for the professional person. That's why I think you're going to be seeing trucks like the Ram Revolution come up with about close to a 225 kilowatt hour battery and 500 plus miles of range.
And then you throw temperature extremes on top of that, which decreases the range even more.
Well, Pete, remember that Rivian we saw towing that 11,000-pound Airstream trailer?
I do.
So
yes.
they like Mark said, they have the capability. It just the range is the problem, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Sean Scherer's Rivian truck with the Airstream. Richard, you received a gift from one of our loyal audience members.
I absolutely did. George and I, along with Mark, had a conversation about me purchasing his Cybertruck reservation. Now, I didn't know exactly how many strings he could pull because he actually got a Cybertruck and he sent it over to me free of charge.
No way.
So I threw some pictures in the file there, Jesse. It's George's gift. If you want to go ahead and pop that up.
Yeah,
Obviously,
give me 1 sec.
Cybertruck is too big to fit into the studio, so couldn't just pull it out over here. But he went ahead and sent it, and it got here pretty safely.
There we go.
There we go.
Hey, there we go.
No, George, thank you so much for the gift. It was super thoughtful. The note says, "Hey, Rich, here's a Cybertruck just in case I can't sell my Cybertruck spot to you on the list. Enjoy."
And George has been one of our faithful audience members. His handle on YouTube is Watch Rich Rebuilds. There's some free advertising whenever we mention his name, but eventually we found out his real name, and we've been going by George most of the time now, although we still give a plug to Rich from time to time.
Most definitely.
YouTube Lightning Rod, welcome back. Hello from Thunder Bay. Congratulations on your heat wave. 30 days, not too bad. Yeah.
The lightning rod, actually, it was 31.
Did it end or is it still going?
It did end.
Oh, man.
We only hit 108
He's
yesterday.
disappointed.
Well, we
Oh.
we more than doubled or like almost tripled the record. I want to set that thing in stone for good.
Yeah, me too. We almost hit it yesterday. It was 108. I've heard that good chance that we're going to start our next one today, and we might be breaking it by the end of August.
Oh, wow. And it's it also has some unintended consequences. For example, I am the Tesla Roadster test driver, and I've got a different Roadster every 2 to 3 days or so as the customer cars are completed. And I'm one of the few that I trust myself to drive a Roadster, for test driving. But I've been running into problems with it power limiting. When it's 112, 115 out there. Even a normally unaffected Roadster is going to go into power limit mode. And what that means is the Roadster firmware monitors the temperature of key critical components like the motor, the battery, and the power electronics module. And you'll watch that power electronic module temperature start getting into the high 50s C.
Yeah.
And by the time it gets to 62, you're in power limit mode. And then if you continue, at times it will actually shut down. So now you have a safety
Terrible.
issue if you're on the freeway, and you
man.
can't get over into the exit lane. So you have to be prepared for that. But it is a safety issue, and here in this kind of temperature, what happens is you have heat coming from two different places. You have your ambient, which
Right.
of course is the outside temperature, but then you have that sun beating down on black asphalt, heating that up and throwing an enormous amount of radiated heat as you're going across the asphalt. And, talking to the early Tesla Roadster design engineers, they were aware that there were certain places on Earth where there may be some heating problems with a Tesla Roadster. One was the Gobi Desert, and the other one was Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah. Well, I as a shout out to some of the people over at the Gruber Industries, our communication products group, we've had a couple ladies that like to bake cookies.
Yeah.
And I have had perfectly done sugar cookies and perfectly done white chocolate macadamia nut cookies that have been cooked on somebody's dashboard.
Right. Yep. Out in the sun.
And in this heat wave. So it's no joke as the heat wave goes. Now, what I've noticed on the S, this is my anecdotal completely. I will take my Model S when I plug it into the charger that we have here locally. I will turn on the cabin cooling because that cabin cooling runs the AC, which actually does go ahead and route some of that air conditioning down to the battery coolant, and it helps to keep the battery conditioned. The car performs much better for me if I keep the cabin cooling turned on in those really hot temperatures. If I forget, like I did yesterday, good luck getting AC on the way home.
Really?
Yeah, I
It
do.
just shuts it down for that
I
long.
typically do not get much, if any, air conditioning on the way home. It all routes down to the battery because the battery is so hot when I get in the car in the afternoon.
Interesting. The Tesla Roadster also has a design issue that does not cross over into the later models. And that is the power electronics module, which is that large three-phase inverter, has a bunch of power transistors that are being cooled by heat sinks. And these heat sinks are being cooled with a manual DC brush motor fan. Unfortunately, the fan placement is not the ideal spot. It's down at the bottom of the car, and it tends to pick up dirt, leaves, twigs, dust, and eventually the plenum that it pumps this air through to cool the transistor heat sinks begins to fill up. And that's the primary reason that a Roadster owner understands that every year they have to have an annual preventive maintenance. And if you live in a place where you're on a dirt road, for example, it may even be more frequent than that. But it's a strong argument for getting your annuals done with your Tesla Roadster, because as it clogs up, you begin to overheat those transistors. And of course, like any semiconductor, heat is an enemy.
And I remember you were telling some of our crew at Gruber Motors earlier this week about one Roadster, a gentleman who had it here in Phoenix, that it was continually overheating and limiting. When you took apart the PEM and got to the boards that were heating and down to the heat sinks, you found that there were a bunch of bougainvillea leaves in the
So we did some forensic analysis, and we were able to tell them, you've got bougainvillea right around your carport, don't you? And sure enough, that was the case.
And that was the case.
Yeah. All right, YouTube. It looks like Niles is back. He's with the Bion Danish Genome Institute. Good morning. He says, Northern Europe has many more Teslas, but many think the EV tech hasn't matured enough yet. I agree with you for the most, that for most driving purposes, except for daily high-kilometer commuters. He agrees with that for most driving purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Norway, their population of Teslas is the highest in Europe, we've been told. And it was just, for us, surprising because we're so used to seeing Teslas on the road. That going to Europe and seeing them that infrequently was quite a revelation.
Yeah, we're so close in proximity to California, where the Los Angeles area is just teeming with Teslas.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough wealth in the area that people like to get the latest and greatest, almost fad as it were. And money is not as much of an object as in other areas of the country. That plus they tend to be a little more progressive in their philosophies, so they tend to gravitate toward things that are more environmentally friendly. And so in Los Angeles, it seems like every third car is a Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're in Phoenix. We're only 5 miles from Los Angeles, and we, as a result, I think we pick up some of that as well.
Sure. I think there's another ingredient too, which is the recognition factor. Remember that Tesla really doesn't change their body style.
Right.
If you remember the other big manufacturers, the challenge was every year or two to come out with a new body style to stay more relevant. And you would watch your Dodge Coronet morph into many different models, or your Pontiacs or your Chevys. Whereas Tesla seems to keep the same body style. I don't think there's been any major changes in the Model S for many years, other than the front upgrade.
Yeah, I think other than the front upgrade, the 2012 Model S looks almost identical to the 2023 Model S.
Right. All right. YouTube, Highland Apparel. Is Brent Pete's son? P.S. Kindness is still free. I'm not following that.
I don't know who Brent is.
Yeah, I'm not following that
Need
one
a little
either.
more info there, Highlander.
Yep. YouTube, again, that guy 9. How are the Teslas holding up in the Arizona heat wave? Well, yeah, we just talked about that. The Roadsters are suffering. And there isn't, even with your annuals being done on the Roadsters, they're not built for this type of heat. But like Mark pointed out, there's some preventive measures you can take to mitigate any kind of heat-related issues.
There definitely are. The Model S's do suffer a little bit. I have a couple of friends that drive Model 3s. Haven't talked to them about how their experience has been with their Model 3s. But overall, you just plan it. It's like anything with the heat. You just plan around it a little bit. We have a Volvo EX or I'm sorry, an XC40, and it's the same thing. We just kind of plan around it, and that car has taken the heat like a champ. I haven't seen range decrease, nothing, and I've been very impressed with how it's been handling.
Yeah. Herbert is joining us from Düsseldorf in Germany on YouTube. He says Tesla, also when assembled in Grünheide, the Tesla Gigafactory in Berlin, still quotes as a U.S. product. Many company car policies in Europe still favor a European product, so Tesla is often no choice as a company vehicle.
That's a great and interesting take. And that, to me, that's kind of funny too, because if you get a Model Y in from Europe to the United States, they say it's not a U.S. product, it's a European product.
All right. Yeah, can't have it both ways. Niles is coming back in, and with YouTube, he said, I traveled and waited a lot, but couldn't help thinking how great it is to get from one continent so quickly. It beats 10 days on a ship, high cost, seasick, and all. Yeah, you're absolutely right. When I came to the United States in 1958, it was on a ship, and we were poor, so we didn't have a penthouse suite on that ship, and seasickness was miserable because all we had to get any sense of horizon was a 4-inch porthole glass, and thick as could be that you could barely see through. So,
oh goodness!
But you're right. Planes definitely are a major improvement. And you know what I'm excited about is they're bringing the Concorde back.
Yeah. Oh, they are. I had not heard that.
Yes. We're looking at a 2.5-hour travel time from Los Angeles to London, I think.
Oh, that would be fantastic for them to bring that back. You know, do you ever remember the days of the sonic booms, hearing the
I did, yeah.
Hearing the plane overhead and boom, it rattles a house. Oh yeah. YouTube, my melt says, for Elon, please allow us full self-driving early adopters a one-time FSD transfer in buying a new Tesla with no time limit.
Well, my melt, this is a good podcast for you to be joining because Elon is actually one of our the audience members there, so hopefully he'll see your question.
By all means, and you know, I agree with my mouth on this one. You know, the press that's come out ever since Tesla has announced that they're going to have a full self-driving transfer from whatever older car to a newer Tesla, and it's limited. You have to order your new car by September 30th. That has not made people very happy. They're like, well, okay, at least I can do it, but if I wasn't ready to buy a car, this is ridiculous. So I can see why a lot of people are still upset with that one as well.
All right. So you were going to tackle a headline that I came across that confused me, and Mark, I think, has a better handle on it. The headline says, Tesla rolls out one electric car every 40 seconds at Gigafactory Shanghai.
Yeah, the Tesla is touting their ability to quickly manufacture vehicles. Ford and the Ford Lightning has touted their ability to roll a Ford Lightning off the line at least once every 49 seconds. And now Tesla says, we're doing you one better. We can do one every 40 seconds. When you look at the production line, though, there's kind of a dichotomy there. You're saying, okay, wait a second. I know it's going to take more than 40 seconds to run this thing through a paint booth and have that paint dry.
Right.
Yeah, I know it's going to take more than 40 seconds for even if it's automated, for them to weld the parts of the major parts of the subframe together. So here's how this can work. First, let's make sure we talk about it's the number of cars that are rolling off the production line, not the whole production process beginning to end. Let's say you have a production line that, in order to be filled, needs 144 cars. So car one starts on the production line, but that by the time that car one rolls off the production line, you know, say 24 hours later, there are 143 cars behind them that are also being produced. Now let's also so if you do that, 144 cars, it equates to roughly a car every 10 minutes rolling off of one production line. Now multiply the number of production lines you have. In this ideal scenario, if you have 15 production lines, you can say, okay, now I'm rolling 15 cars off of my production lines as finished cars every 10 minutes. On average, that means I'm rolling one car out finished every 40 seconds. It takes time to feed that funnel. It doesn't mean that it's not taking a day or two to actually produce the car. It is, but I'm producing so many that I'm averaging a finished car off of my production line every 40 seconds.
Okay. And that, Mark, is the very reason that you are the chief financial officer at Gruber Motors and the Gruber companies. Thank you for that explanation.
You're very welcome.
All right. Moving along here. Looks like we've got some questions. YouTube, Crunch Grace the Hopper. Welcome back. He says, number 4 was responding to SMR regarding EV fuels that are 90+% recyclable. So once batteries end their 10 to 20-year life cycles, battery recyclers will be viewed as hammering nails into ice industry coffins.
That's a really interesting comment to me. We've seen comments come in on occasion that lament how lithium is so expensive to mine, how lithium is so damaging to the environment, and the mining processes are so damaging, and that's used as an argument against electric vehicles. Even to the point that they say, well, and lithium is not recyclable. But we know that it is. You know, Redwood Materials. We were talking in our last podcast about Redwood Materials, actually, and how they're now a $5 billion company. And so Redwood Materials has a process whereby they're going to be able to recycle somewhere between 95 and 98% of the raw materials from lithium batteries and put those back into the life cycle of rechargeable batteries. And they believe that the purity of the raw material products are superior to the purity of products that are coming out of mining operations.
Interesting. Yeah. It's high-grade ore, basically.
Yeah, and it's a lot less expensive than mining it would be.
Right.
And just an update for the last podcast we talked about that. It is a pretty advanced chemical process. It's proprietary, so we can't get all the details, but they use a bunch of chemical pools basically to get all of the materials out. So that's why I don't think that pink foam we talked about will be an issue.
Okay, thanks, Jesse, for that additional. You know, I had done a little bit of looking myself to see whether or not chemical processes like this to extract elements are common or not. And I've learned that actually they are very common. For example, Arizona is known for its copper mining. Freeport-McMoRan Corporation, they're one of the largest corporations in the world and are the largest company in Arizona. They have leach ponds. They take their copper ore and strip mine it, dump it into these massive leach ponds, pump all kinds of water into it, and as the water filters down through the ore, they also add, and I don't remember what chemical it is. It's like a hydrochloric acid or something like that. And that water that filters down, as it comes out the bottom, it goes into a retaining basin, and the water basically turns like a blue color. And that's copper-rich water. Now they simply take the water, pump it back into their stations, extract through a different chemical process the copper out of the water, and there you go. Yeah. So it's exactly the same type of process we're talking about at Redwood Materials.
You know, what you just said brought something to mind. Not too far from where we operate here. This was all country back then. This was like 1970. I used to have a dirt bike. And riding through these hills out here, there was a spot over there in the hills where they had the very leach ponds that you described.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And back then, security must not have been great because there was no chain link fence that I needed to, breach in order to get in there. But you could literally ride your dirt bike by these leach ponds, and they had sprinkler heads mounted on PVC pipe that would spray chemical onto these ponds. And I'm assuming it was for some sort of a leaching operation. I don't know what they were extracting, but, silver and gold was something that was mined in this area many years ago. I can't imagine it would have been a copper extraction process because it was too small.
Right. But I could imagine it would have been either a silver or gold process because they do the same type of extraction with leach ponds and chemicals.
Interesting. Looks like YouTube. Paraglider, welcome. Paraglider76. He's greeting Herbert Buder in Düsseldorf, Germany, and he says, greetings from Tarocco Rosso. Sounds Italian to me.
It does sound Italian.
You have to look that one up.
And Hubert had replied to Paraglider as well, said it was cool to see him here. Highlander Apparel also has another comment for us. Says there are 2 Teslas where I live. One's black, one's white. That's why I suggested wrapping our Jeeps as Teslas.
Okay.
From Toledo, Ohio.
Interesting. So I've got a news item here. I was surprised, not really surprised. China is rapidly becoming a car manufacturer. And the statistics indicate that China's international car trade jumped 16.2% for the first half from a year ago. So the first half of this year compared to last year. That's some pretty rapid growth when you think about it. And, we tended to regard China for many decades as a low-tech labor pool.
Right.
And that, of course, is rapidly changing. Everybody realizes that it can be an economic powerhouse based on the number of people that can participate in the manufacturing process. But yeah, they apparently, there's some other statistics here. They did $136 billion in car sales for the first half of this year. And the imports fell 22.5%. Obviously, if they're creating their own cars, they're not going to be importing as many.
Exactly.
So while exports rose 41% to over 99.9 billion.
That if there's ever been a question about why does Elon Musk say things that the Chinese would think are friendly, and why does Elon Musk have a Chinese factory, this answers those questions.
Totally.
Also, the world overall is the wealth in the world is growing to a point that the automotive market is still, even 140 years after its invention, a growing market. You've got India with its 1.5 billion people that are starting to have a growing middle class and demand for automobiles. Africa with its 750 million people. Europe, of course, with its 750 million people who tend to be a little more environmentally conscious than we are in the United States overall. Okay, that's 3 billion people, a massive, massive market. No wonder BYD Motors is considered Tesla's main rival in the EV space.
Yeah. And then you throw on top of that, not only are these new BEVs being adopted, but you have this conversion factor. All of these ICE vehicles are going to be replaced.
Yep.
So, bright future ahead. So, question was, what kind of car does Elon Musk actually drive on a daily basis? And it turns out that he drives a Tesla Model S Plaid. He likes the performance of that. Now, this is a guy that's worth, of course, billions. He could have any car that he wants. Like Mark pointed out, how much does he make per second?
Well, if Elon was worth $100 billion, he's actually worth more than that. And you were able to receive 5% annual interest on $100 billion, which actually with his investments, he receives more than that. That would equate to about $160 a second. A second, or roughly $13.7 million a day that he gets in earnings. He is one of the very few people that proverbially is costing more money to stop, bend down, and pick up a $100 bill and put it in his pocket because of the time that he loses.
Right.
And so for people like that, a car is, the value of a car is meaningless. You and I and everybody in this room and probably everybody in this company, when we look at a car, we always take a cost of that car into account. It's a big purchase. It's somewhere between several months and sometimes more than a year's worth of salary. And so we have to think about that. When you're in Elon's case, you don't have to think about it. Just go drive whatever you want.
Exactly. So, but he goes, it goes on with this article. He drives a Tesla Model S Plaid, which is understandably so because his company makes it. But he says that he's going to change that as soon as the Cybertruck comes out. A quote, "I can't wait to drive it personally," talking about the Cybertruck, and this was during the 2023 earnings call. He says, "It will be the car that I drive every day."
You know, the footprint of the Cybertrucks that are starting to roll off the line seem to be a little bit smaller than the footprint of what seemed to be like a behemoth, as the one that Elon infamously threw the metal ball at and broke the window on.
Right.
Those slightly smaller Cybertrucks they're what did we say, Richard? They were like the size of a Tacoma or something like that.
Yeah, give or take, 4-door Tacoma.
Yeah.
So it will fit into a standard 2-car garage residential setting.
Yeah.
That was the big concern, was it was going to be too large for that.
Yeah, they're talking about it being just about 19 feet long, so that's about the size of a Model S. Very cool vehicle. I'm very interested to see what these start looking like as they roll out off the line.
So staying with that thought for a moment, what does Elon drive? What will he be driving? Where does Elon live, or what does he live in?
Yeah.
This is another interesting concept here. He says he lives in a tiny house in Boca Chica, Texas, which is close to the SpaceX facility. And he said it costs like $45,000. And it's very small, is a quote from him. Now, remember, in 2020, Elon owned some pretty impressive property in California. I think it was more than one mansion-type style
Right.
home. Brentwood, I think, was one of them. But anyway, he sold all of those in 2020 and began to downsize. And he definitely does not fit the profile that we expect of a multi-billionaire.
Definitely not. If I remember right, in 2020, he was starting to get angry with the state of California for all of the hostile actions that they were taking against him personally and against Tesla, what he called excessive regulation of the company, and ended up moving the headquarters of the company down to Austin, where it would be a friendlier environment. And in my opinion, suits him much more based on his personal, who he is, and beliefs and stuff like that.
So we've got a picture I'd like to throw up, Jesse. If you can do that, it's
Yeah, just so you know, we're getting pretty backed up on questions too.
okay. All right, we'll hit those in just a second. Then I've got an interesting picture. It's the May picture. Elon's mom, May Musk, who was at the Tesla takeover in California this weekend. They had an event Saturday and Sunday. Had a pretty good turnout. They had a bunch of influencers there, YouTube influencers, and a lot of the people that we know and have had on our podcast, actually. But yeah, May is a very colorful character. And the picture that you see there is her enjoying a Tesla Roadster in the passenger seat. And I did a little bit of research on this picture. It turns out this was from a photo shoot where she was doing a commercial. But it was a very fitting picture because her son was very much involved in the creation of the car that you see there. This is a very orange, I can't tell what year it is, but it's a Tesla Roadster, and she seems to be having a lot of fun in that Roadster.
She sure does. That's a great looking picture.
People that were at this Tesla Roundup, she was inspirational and did a great job from what I've heard with her presentation. She told a lot of stories, which I'm sure she has plenty of, and so it was definitely an event worth attending for the EV community.
Watching her interview a little bit with Ellie in space, she was definitely a colorful person.
Yeah. Yeah, Ellie was managed to get on that platform, and it was reserved for very influential people. But my hat's off to Ellie. She managed to infiltrate and pulled off an interview with the infamous May Musk.
Yes, definitely.
All right, questions, bunch of them. YouTube, PYGKLB says, if one played Punch Tesla in California, one would have a sore arm. Very true.
Very true. If we go back, and Wayne Levitt it started that conversation thread saying, I'm seeing a lot of Teslas in Perth now. So he obviously lives in Australia. We punch each other, saying, punch Tesla when we see one, kind of like the punch buggy when you had the old VW Beetles along in
Oh my
past
God,
times.
yeah. I remember those as a kid. You were That was definitely a fun game while we were driving.
Yeah, I have permanent bruises on my arm, I think, from that. Crunch Grace Hopper at that guy 9. I saw a bunch of powered trailers last week in Tesla takeover. There are more variants coming to satisfy every conceivable need. We've only just begun.
Just in capital letters. Yeah, you're very right there.
And powered trailers, that's an interesting concept too.
Well, power trailers, powered motorhomes, for example, instead of pulling your recreational vehicle. Ice,
Sure.
definitely. There are a lot of ice type recreational vehicles, and if you think about it, it really lends itself to an electric effort because virtually everything inside the motorhome is electric. Even your refrigerator, for example, and cooking surfaces.
Well, and if you think about it, I've never thought of this before, so this is my initial impression. Okay, you put a small electric motor, wheel mount motor inside a trailer. You're going to hook it up electrically to your car anyway. As that car accelerates, that trailer is going to sense that acceleration. Why not have another simple cable coming back that says, yeah, we're going to throw some power to the wheels of this trailer as well?
It's an interesting concept. It makes it far more efficient.
By all means, and then you could automatically have regenerative braking on the trailer, just like you have on a car, and so you don't have to further stress the braking system in your car.
Well, there's a whole new future market then.
Very possible. EV Fan, I think, agrees with us. He says powered trailers like EV trailers.
You bet. You bet. YouTube, PYGKLB, Crunch Grace the Hopper. I was at the takeover too. Pretty exciting to see the new items. Yeah, share those with us. We've got a little bit more time. Instagram, Danish Aslam 784. Hello, how are you, sir? I'm well. We are well. Thank you for joining us. YouTube, My Melt. Need to take delivery of the new Tesla by September to qualify for the FSD transfer. What a nail biter.
That's a little different from what I've heard in the press. What I've heard reported was that as long as you placed an order for your Tesla, you would be able to get the FSD transfer. If he's been told that he has to take delivery, that definitely is a little bit of a nail biter because the announcement, it's almost like, okay, I'm gonna give you 2 months. You're going to have to take delivery by the end of the 2 months. Oh, and by the way, it's going to take me 2 months and 2 weeks to build it.
All right. Yeah, there are a lot of variables that are outside your control with that one. YouTube, Highland Apparel says, do you guys know who Grace Hopper was as a nuclear submariner? I do.
We have heard his name once, and I don't remember it right offhand. I know that he is a military guy as well. I'm glad to hear that you guys know each other outside of the electronic universe.
Instagram, Danish Ashlam 784 says, what about Tesla company introducing a new automatic car? If he means one with an automatic transmission, that would be interesting.
It would be interesting. I mean, right now they have their continuously variable transmission that comes as a result of the electric motor. Give us more information on that.
But you know what that would change? It's an interesting notion. It would change top speed on these cars.
Oh, it sure would.
Yeah, I mean, the Tesla Roadster, it's at 14,000 RPMs. That three-phase AC induction motor is going to explode literally if it goes any higher than that.
Sure.
So it's limited to 130 miles per hour top speed. It used to have a two-speed transmission, but they were burning up the clutches because of the intense torque. With a two-speed transmission, you would have had a much higher top speed on that car. With the Tesla Model S Plaid, they went to almost 200 miles an hour, I believe, because they went to a carbon fiber stator where, in the motor, which doesn't have as much mass.
Right.
At higher RPMs. But yeah, with the transmission, I mean, now you can basically do what some of these high-end exotics do. They have 8 speed transmissions in them at times, 6, 8, or whatever.
Well, even like like Ford that puts out their EcoBoost 10-speed transmission, there are so many different gears in that transmission. The shifting seems to be almost seamless.
Mm-hmm.
For them, they do it for fuel efficiency, but you could tweak something like that for power instead. That's
There's
an
some merit
interesting
there, huh?
concept.
Yeah. All right, TikTok. Joel 1031. Welcome, Joel. Ford, GM, and Dodge are all losing ground on sales. That's the big deal here. Well, they're struggling with design issues and conversion and pivoting into this new technology. It's not easy for an incumbent to recreate their production lines and shift into something like an EV.
I know that Ford mentioned that they had $2.3 billion in profit in the last quarter in their ICE vehicles. And then they lost $1.1 billion in their electric vehicle space.
Amazing. Yeah.
So they're definitely struggling to find that point. It seems like Ford is ahead of the legacy competition when it comes to really being committed to the EV space. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And the elephant in the room is the question, will they make it?
Yeah, and I think that's the question for a lot of the legacy automakers.
Yeah. YouTube, Nulvers53. Welcome back, Pete. I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Van Goatwagon on TikTok also says that China is making the cars and letting them rot. They are just sitting. I know I've seen some pictures of cars in parking lots and on fields in China.
Mm-hmm.
So far, every time we've looked at the whole cars rotting or scooters rotting or things like that, we found that there is a little more to the story behind the pictures than they're just cars that are being made and left to sit.
Yeah.
Either it's an older picture or it's a company that had some financial struggles and is having some delivery issues. Most frequently, it's cars are sitting on a field waiting to be loaded on trucks so they can be set out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, you have logistics issues. And like here in the U.S., we're still trying to avoid a Teamster strike for, truck deliveries. And how's that going, by the way?
Teamsters and UPS on Friday of this last week said that they've got the framework for an agreement in place. While the finalized agreement's not done yet, it did avoid the strike last week.
Good. Because I know we were talking about the need to factor in additional shipping and freight costs as a result of all the product that we ship.
Yeah, by all means. And one of our freight companies, Yellow Freight, went out of business this last Sunday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's creating some waves in the trucking and shipping industry because they've announced that they are going to cease operations after 99 years.
Amazing. Yeah, I was going to say they're, I think, one of the first and one of the longest standing freight companies around.
Yep.
This is going to be one of the biggest deals ever reached, though, right? With Teamsters, UPS.
I think it is. Yeah,
I think it is. Like it's $1 billion deal or something crazy like that.
Yeah, it's a very significant deal. And I know one of the major concessions that they made just that intrigued me, air conditioning in the UPS vehicles.
I can't believe that's not a thing, especially here in Arizona. I do not, all day long, 10-hour shifts driving.
It's a brown box truck. Do you know what kind of heat that thing generates with the sun beating on it? At least they could have made them white in Arizona, or silver or something.
No doors either, right? No, or is that, maybe that's not a thing. Maybe
I think they intentionally do that just to get
air.
Yeah, I think they keep the doors
It's an
open
oven.
to get air because I do think they have doors that close.
Amazing.
James Hill on TikTok asks, why is Tesla ignoring solid-state batteries? Now Toyota says their EVs are going to have solid states. Solid states are the future, but why is Musk ignoring it?
It's $1 million question. I can't imagine that a company that is a market leader like Tesla doesn't have a good reason for avoiding it at this point. Or we think they're avoiding it, but maybe they've got legions of people working in labs developing the next generation product, and it's just not visible to the market yet.
I think that's more along the lines of what it's going to be. What do you think, Jesse?
I was going to say, if you guys saw the article, I think came out yesterday, where there's some German charging company that just got bought out by Tesla. So now this German company, I forget the name, is now become a new R&D department of advanced charging for Tesla. So I think something like that's going to happen, where Tesla's going to buy up one of these, solid state startups or graphene startups or something like that, and probably integrate their technology at some point.
Well, they did that years ago by buying Maxwell Technologies, which was the supercap battery company.
Sure.
And I'm not sure what the integration was like once they purchased that company.
And that's a technique that companies have used for ages. Governments have used for ages. Go let somebody else spend all the money on the research and development. Once they get close to a finished product, buy or steal, in the case of some governments, that technology for yourself, so you can end up having it for a lot less. Tesla has been at the forefront, the bleeding edge, as it were, of research and development. Maybe they're more interested in being a profitable car and battery company right now.
Mm-hmm. All right, YouTube, Nulvers53 says, yeah, a normal garage.
He's referring to the Cybertruck conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And Lightning Rod on YouTube says, I want a space Camino for each foot.
Okay.
I think he's talking about the Cybertruck. I think that is an appropriate name for it.
A space Camino.
Space Camino.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. That old 1970s the Camino. Sure.
You might have just ruined the Cybertruck for me, Richard.
You're not going to be able to get that image out of your head.
More for me, Jesse.
YouTube Lightning Rod, the Matrix is glitching, he says.
Yes, it is. Ken Pappas on YouTube says, we crossed the deflection point where now supply has passed demand. I've considered selling my gas for an EV, but range, battery life, and cost versus luxury continue to hold me back. I'm in a hold pattern.
Okay.
Ken, I think, is in the same spot as many, many other people. The early adopters of EV, I've seen articles on this. I happen to agree wholeheartedly as well. The early adopter market is starting to get filled up. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of things that you can do. At some point, there's going to need to be a transition from that early adopter market to mainstream. And in order to get to mainstream, there's going to have to be some combination of better range, lower price, continued improvement in quality. And I think there are different vehicles that match different pieces of that. I'm not sure that any electric vehicle manufacturer to date, Tesla included, has completely solved that equation yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're getting close.
Interesting. Yes. So, got an article here. The Tesla Cybertruck Wrapped as an F-Ford 150 is currently the buzz. And there are images of that vehicle that are emerging on social media, spotted in California. And one of the articles here calls it now the Tesla's Cyber-F-150. Now, the burning question is, why? Why did Tesla do this? And there are a number of possible reasons that have been proposed. One is due to Tesla's long reputation as a company that does things differently. Perhaps it's to show off the wide range of vehicle wraps that will be available to customers in the future. I think Mark had an interesting viewpoint on this as well.
Oh, I think Tesla's marketing department has been working overtime, and they're brilliant people. Maybe if Jesse could reach back to our podcast from last week, 727.
We pulled up those images already. Let me see if I find them.
Yeah, it's in the images file in 727. We can see this wrapped Cybertruck on the back of a trailer. But people wonder how Tesla gets so much attention, and they say, well, they don't have any salespeople, they don't have a marketing department. I'm sorry, I'm calling BS on that. They have to have a marketing department to get this kind of brilliance, or just everybody who's in the company has a marketing mindset of what's it going to take to help draw attention to this brand new vehicle. Because, man, the type of attention they're getting for something as simple as a car wrap is outrageous.
And there's a cliche saying that seems to permeate Tesla culture, and that's thinking outside the box. The traditionalists are going to use a completely different approach to bringing product to market and advertising, and they're going to hire, advertising agencies and the traditional methods. Tesla has always thwarted any of that and just done their own thing.
Well, and 15 years ago, little companies would put out a website, and those that had a website and knew how to leverage it, learned how to leverage that. Little companies could look like big companies.
Yeah.
And that was democratization of business in a way that was just amazing. Well, now that had kind of become a passe or kind of a not a thing anymore. The big businesses pay big money to get the best websites. So now you have social media, and it's happening all over again. The little guy, all you have to have is a cell phone and a camera, and you can look as big as the biggest company, or you can get as much attention as the biggest company. When a large company like Tesla puts out something like what we see on the screen, you see a big company taking the type of ingenuity that a small person has, the little person that's trying to get attention,
Right.
with huge success.
Yeah.
So that's to me, that my initial impression when I saw that picture was, wow, they did a good job on that Ford making it look like a Cybertruck.
Where trolling comes to mind. One of the possible reasons was perhaps there is no reason, and it's all other than just because.
Yeah.
Somebody decided, hey, let's try this. YouTube, Highland Apparel. He says, very kind of you to mention Ellie. I have my nieces watching here. Sandy did a show on powered campers, and it was good to watch. Yeah, we found Ellie fascinating, actually. Very passionate. She actually came to visit us, a couple of weeks ago or so while I was on vacation.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's coming back. It's fun becoming acquainted with passionate people like her. Very optimistic, positive, and just a joy to be around.
Very much, very much. Hey, Van Goldwagon says, hello, Jesse.
Hello, Van Gogh. See him over on TikTok. Thanks for holding down TikTok for us.
Yeah. TikTok, Bobby W540 says it's crazy that it's a Lotus body. We're talking about the Tesla Roadster here, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think when we showed the picture of May Tesla in the Roadster.
May and there's a backstory there too. At the time that Tesla got started, Martin Eberhard, Mark Tarpenning, they weren't a car manufacturing company. They had limited space. They were about the size of Gruber Motor Company. And the only way that they could bring a car to market was to take someone else's car and do the electrification. And not too many companies at the time were interested in selling a couple thousand cars to a startup like this. But Lotus stepped up to the plate and said, yeah, we've got a car, the Lotus Elise. Looks like this is the right size you're looking for. And the next thing you know, they got a contract to purchase 2,400 only Lotus Elises. And the goal was to electrify them using the T0 or the ACP drivetrain, what's called AC propulsion. So anyway, turns out that drivetrain was not suitable. It was an analog drivetrain. It was experimental. It was prototype, and for larger volume production, it just wasn't going to work. So Tesla invested in developing a digital drivetrain. The problem they ran into was, by the time they tried to shoehorn a 1,000-pound battery pack into this Lotus Elise, they needed to make major changes to the car. They changed the frame. They had to change all the body panels. But fortunately, they kept the look and feel and the DNA of Lotus in that car. And that's what makes the Tesla Roadster so successful, that it's today really the only electric sports car out there, still this late in the game.
Yeah.
There are a number of variations on the drawing boards now, including Lotus, who has their Evija, which is a over-the-top electric, vehicle, sports car. But it is kind of a mind blower that the Lotus Elise, became successful through the Tesla Roadster.
I just wonder, MG has announced the Cyberster that's going to be coming to Europe and China. Is the next one after the Cyberster that's a true roadster style sports car going to be the second generation Roadster?
Yeah, that's a thought-provoking question. And it looks like YouTube Lightning Rod. He said, "Ask Mr. Hopper about the effect of CO2 on humans." Or is that CO@, or did you guys just mistype that?
I think it's CO2. That's as it was typed in on YouTube.
Okay. Well, all right. If Mr. Hopper's out there.
Anthony Venditti on Facebook has joined us today. He's asking, when is Elon going to come through and actually make his cars fully self-driving?
Well, Elon actually joined this chat about a half hour or so ago. I don't know if he's still there, but Elon, if you see that question, feel free to respond.
And I know that Elon, the full self-driving, has a new beta out. It's starting to get rolled out to a few people. Elon is really excited about it. He has been touting it and how close it is to true full self-driving. I don't have much information other than that, though. It's made the press a little bit, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, just an update. We are about 15 minutes left, and we still are about 3 pages back on questions.
Okay, let's get some questions out of the way then. Niles with YouTube says, Grace Hopper was a woman. Okay.
And then Grace Hopper on YouTube, breaking news. And we heard this just before the show as well. Corey Steuben has just said that he's going to be departing Monroe Associates.
Yeah, we have no details at this point. It's, it was kind of like a Laurel and Hardy relationship in that they were inseparable. And we just hope that there's, that this is an amiable departure. We actually have a podcast with Sandy, August 14th, I believe. He's going to be joining our podcast here, and I believe that falls on a Monday, right, guys?
Actually, I think you're going to be interviewing with him on his podcast.
On his podcast.
And then it'll be, and it's not a live podcast, as it were, so it'll be published shortly afterwards.
Okay.
Jesse keeps correcting me on that.
Yeah, we'll be recording with him on the 14th, 2 weeks from yesterday.
Okay. But that is sad news. Again, they made quite a team, and I'm sure the details will emerge.
Brooklyn Staten on TikTok asks, what's the story with the sunglasses?
My God, we haven't had a sunglass question this entire session. It is one of our hallmarks. We seem to be setting a trend. I've noticed some other people in this EV space wearing sunglasses. Mm-hmm. We do plan a video reveal at some point that will give you the backstory on why there are always sunglasses involved in the Gruber productions, from videos to podcasts. But for now, we are we're holding that close to our chest.
We welcome the speculation. We get the most interesting ideas from people about what's going on with the sunglasses.
It even launched a line of sunglasses. In fact, This is your time to do the pitch.
Oh, yeah. We've even got a line of sunglass cases that we've launched. As a result, there's a red one. Here's a burgundy one. These are available now on the Gruber Motors website. They're a premium sunglass case, so they're made with a full grain leather, hand stitched, and work very well. Do not put any scratches or anything on the inside. Mm-hmm. So hopefully you liked the one that you had when you took over to Europe.
I did. It worked out wonderfully. And,
with that one, we also have this blue one, and we have a brown one as well available. You can see them on the Gruber Motors website.
The color that you get is not too important. What's the most important thing about these sunglasses is that you use code Richard at checkout, because you will get 10% off.
Oh, there you go.
Now, is there another code out there? Is it just yours?
Nope, no other code.
Actually, there is. Americans choose Aaron as the code.
So we have two competing codes out there.
A little bit of rivalry there in our social media
team. Code Richard or code Aaron will work to get 10% off.
But code Richard might work a little bit better. That's all I'm going to say.
So YouTube, Ed Prelitz. Ed Prelitz used to work here many, many years ago. It was over a decade ago or so. Welcome, Ed. Appreciate you joining us. His comment is, thoughts on Elon considering Bitcoin verse. is Doge for transactions and the mutable network transaction fees associated with. Boy,
Yeah, this is when Mark, you're into Bitcoin over there. Why
I'm
don't
a
you
little
take this
bit
one?
into Bitcoin. So, it says thoughts on Elon considering Bitcoin verse. Is Doge for transactions and the mutable network transaction fees associated to facilitate those transactions during high or low usage times? That's a kind of a jargony question. Let me unpack it just real quick. So he's asking whether about is Elon considering the use of coins as transaction fees when there are transactions. Let's say you have 10 transactions lined up in Bitcoin that are waiting to be done. And it's considered an open marketplace. So whoever is willing to pay more gets their transaction done first. If you have 10 transactions in the queue, the amount that you need to pay is less than if there are 1,000 transactions in the queue. I'm not going to get more complicated than that because I don't know that I understand it totally myself, even though I have held Bitcoin for a while. I have not heard that Elon uses Bitcoin or Doge very frequently. I know that at one point he was pushing the Dogecoin.
He was, yes.
And it gained a lot of value, and there were winners and losers in that as well. A mutable network transaction fee simply means that it's my understanding is that it means it's a transaction fee that goes up or down as you have volume on that network.
I see. Okay.
And so I think it would be versus Doge for transactions.
Bitcoin or Doge. It's going to be interesting if he incorporates that into X or what used to be Twitter, because he wants to make that have payments and kind of make it the everything app. So
yeah, and I know that Elon has also talked about being able to accept payments for cars or things like that through Tesla in either Bitcoin or Dogecoin. Now, there is a difference between the two. Bitcoin has a static a cap on the number that will ever be generated. There's as time goes on, the calculations that result in Bitcoins being generated get more and more complicated. And what's estimated to be sometime around the end of 2024, Bitcoin will reach its cap. And there will, after that point, never be Bitcoin generated. It will be strictly a currency. It'll be almost like it was a gold standard, except that you can't mine gold anymore.
Okay. Or you've run out of the resource.
You've run out of the resource. Dogecoin is based on the Ethereum network, and there is no limit to the number of Ethereum that can be generated over time. So it's like having gold where you do have resources that you can continue to mine gold. And so between the two, I don't know. I think the transactions for the Dogecoin transaction fees will stay lower. I think Bitcoin is going to be a limited resource over time because of that hard limit on the number of Bitcoin that will be out there in the universe. They will become more valuable over time. Also because Bitcoin seems to be more widely accepted than the other cryptocurrencies, as it were.
Fascinating.
There's a lot we can go into on that. It's a fun discussion, but it's a little bit of a rabbit hole compared to where we go normally.
I think we're beginning to broaden out into investment advice at this point from just EV.
Not official investment.
Not official investment advice, though. Yeah.
I was just about to clear my throat.
Yeah, there you go. I was about to say. Just so you guys know, again, 10 minutes left. We can go a little longer if you want, but we got a bit of questions here.
Okay. Anthony Venditti on Facebook has joined us as well. He says, most of the vehicles in the U.S. Postal Service also have no air conditioning. Finally, now the USPS has decided to start ordering vehicles with AC. Yay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wonder if that's the same with Amazon's fleet. All delivery fleets just don't want to take care of their air conditioning, apparently.
They don't drive with doors open.
Oh, they don't.
I don't
Okay.
think so. Yeah, they have those streeter vans, those large, and they've
Okay.
they've also purchased a bunch of electric vans
Yeah,
from
from Rivian.
From Rivian, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
Rivian.
those Rivian vans are actually pretty cool looking vans.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Rivian would have not put air conditioning in those vans.
I can't imagine it either. I don't know though.
Yeah.
Highlander Apparel also on YouTube says, Corey leaving. No way. If it's true, so sad.
Yeah, there's a video on his Twitter. You can go check. He is leaving, unfortunately. Or fortunately. Maybe he wants to. I'm not sure.
YouTube lightning rod, graphene, nano, superconductor, batteries with the power of the sun. But you know what? I've got a graphene article here. Maybe it's a good time to go into this, or do we continue with questions? I think Jesse's going to want us to
Well,
continue
I mean,
with
it's up
questions.
to you. The questions would be about stuff we've already covered, but if you want to do that
Yeah.
graphene and just go a little longer today, we
Let's
can.
do the graphene.
All right, good. So at Rice University, they have developed a concept. One man's trash is another man's treasure to its extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing here is they're taking garbage, things like banana peels, coffee grounds, single-use plastic containers, coal. All of these are being turned into what is considered the most valuable material around, graphene. And the way they're doing this apparently is, well, let me back up for a moment here, and then I'll tell you how. The world throws away 30 to 40% of all food because it goes bad. And plastic waste, of course, is a worldwide concern. And they've already proven that any solid carbon-based matter, including mixed plastic waste, rubber tires, can be turned into graphene. Graphene is a single layer of carbon atoms that are connected to one another by 6 chemical bonds. And it creates a lattice that resembles chicken wire at the molecular level.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're doing here is they're taking garbage, basically, heating it to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit for just 10 milliseconds. And what this does is it breaks every chemical bond in the input material. All atoms, aside from carbon now, turn into gas, which escape in this proof of concept device that could be capturing or could be captured for industrial applications. The carbon, however, resembles itself as flakes of graphene. And the cost of extracting graphene, at least up till now, is about $67,000 to $200,000 per ton. And that's one of the things that has prevented graphene battery production is, the high cost of that raw material.
Sure.
So if this comes into production, we now are going to do a number of things. We're not only going to be able to apply this into a variety of applications, including batteries, but they also talk about strengthening concrete with graphene. It would use less concrete for buildings and cost less to transport. It's going to be lighter, in other words.
Sure.
Essentially, they say we're also trapping greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane that waste food would have emitted in landfills.
Right, because they're actually taking carbon and putting it into concrete instead of having all the carbon that escapes during the concrete manufacturing process. So
Exactly.
you're both using less carbon, creating less carbon because there's less concrete, and storing carbon. It's fascinating.
It's an environmental win-win, on steroids, basically. And as we've been saying ever since we started these podcasts, battery technology will continue to improve. It is evolving rapidly. And the notion of, again, carrying a 1,200-pound battery around with you in your car is really kind of absurd.
Right.
So anyway, that's the latest on graphene. This new technique, by the way, is called flash joule heating. And far cheaper and simpler, doesn't rely on any hazardous solvents or chemical additives. And so
carbon, the only elements on Earth that are more plentiful than carbon are hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So carbon itself is one of the most abundant elements on Earth. All life forms are obviously carbon based. And so to me, this is exciting, fascinating. I equate graphene to, graphene is to electronics and high tech what cannabis is purported to be to medicine.
Right.
It's going to be used for everything. It's going to be used everywhere. We've even talked in the past about being able to have a solid state battery that's graphene based, can charge 10 minutes for 500 miles or something like that, and last 100 years. It just doesn't break down.
And it's made from a raw material that is one of the most plentiful on Earth.
Yeah, so if there's a cheap way to be able to get it, especially cheap and more environmentally friendly, I think that's a huge win-win, and I think there's a wonderful potential for this.
So, guys, that's good until we have fusion. Got to get my fusion plug in there. But then also, I'm going to throw in a new plug that I'm going to start doing, alien reverse engineering. Yeah, I know we all saw that Congress hearing with the guys talking about aliens. So that's now my new conspiracy, is we're going to have some alien tech coming soon.
Yeah. For those of you interested in some of these rabbit holes that we go down, every Sunday, Jesse and I come in and after some caffeinated Starbucks and donuts, we start theorizing about what the future of technology is, how AI is going to integrate with the human species, and how religion could intersect with any of this. And there are always provocative questions that come up. We don't have all the answers, but we certainly do pose a lot of interesting questions in that podcast. And that was one of the ones we spent a lot of time on this last Sunday. Was here are three guys being deposed in front of Congress, and they're making admissions that we've never heard before. Admissions that, yeah, UFOs exist. We know they exist.
And
we've got the foreign matter.
And they're not talking in circles around it, trying to dance around it. They're just outright saying, we have non-human remains and craft.
Well, and to go on top of that, I haven't followed it a lot, but I did note that they decided to make everything classified in the hearings,
Yeah.
and they pulled the hearings off of TV.
Really?
Yes.
Did not know that. So yeah, the most interesting thing for me about that whole concept was that they've been reverse engineering this for many decades, and it begins to kind of possibly explain how we're getting all of these rampant, rapid new technologies when the human race doesn't seem to be evolving very much based on what's going on in Eastern Europe. So where is this, where is all of this new evolutionary technology coming from? And one possible explanation would be the reverse engineering of higher intelligence generated, matter like this.
Very interesting.
Now, the question that I asked in that podcast Sunday was, it suddenly dawned on me, and I said, what else are they hiding from us?
Yeah. What else is behind that classified moniker?
Danny Ames on YouTube has joined us this morning, and good morning, Danny. He says, I traded a 21 Model Y with full self-driving for a 23 Model Y. It's a better ride, less wind noise, smoother suspension, a snappy MCU, improved trim. The console now ships without the tray insert, so take the old one out of yours if you update. Thank you for that really quick review on that.
So just a couple, 3 years made a huge difference in performance and the interior and, even the MCU.
Yeah. Wow. Asset Farmer. Interesting take he has on TikTok. He says, I work at GM store and I just saw a single Hummer battery, 4,100 pounds in one Hummer battery unloaded from a box trailer.
God, we're talking 2 tons of battery that you're hauling around with you.
Oh my gosh.
I think that one's
crazy.
a 500-mile range one. I'm not sure.
I think it is. I know it's like a 9,500-pound vehicle. It's massive.
I hope they get a lot of range with a battery that heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. Van Goatwagon on TikTok. I wonder what happened to the original one. Can you guys help give us some context?
Well, he's talking about the big battery the Hummer battery being replaced.
Okay.
Yeah.
TikTok Acid Farmer says, I do tip my hat to Tesla, one software company legacy manufacturer, 150 separate module
Companies.
companies without with no collaboration. I mean, Tesla is, in my opinion, a refreshing change to the manufacturing and the technology landscape. Diverse, very, very progressive.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, we have to give Elon a lot of credit. There's no doubt about that. There's a visionary buried in that body. But at the same time, there are legions of people within Tesla that are really responsible for a lot of these gifts that were being given. Teams, building teams effectively. And it is a refreshing company to see on the landscape. The other thing I like about it is it's not like your myopic traditional companies that attempt to limit competition and destroy competition and that are adversarial. Tesla is like Nikola Tesla. They give away patents. They're not that concerned. And success, I think their success stems from that, is that they're willing to be open.
I love that open mindset that they have. And we've talked about this in the past. A lot of Tesla's philosophy and culture has been built because it had to be built this way.
Right.
Tesla went to the A-list vendors, and the A-list vendors like, yeah, I'm not going to work with you. You're going to go bankrupt in a couple of years. So they went to the B-list vendors, and the B-list vendors said the same thing. So they're going to places like my favorite, the Taiwanese barbecue manufacturer.
To make the battery housing.
To make the battery housing for the Tesla Roadster. Why? Because they found somebody who wouldn't say no.
Right. Yeah.
And Tesla, that's part of Tesla's culture. They're not willing to say no. They're always willing to have persistence to work through whatever issues they come across. And sometimes they come across some real doozies of issues.
And they have a powerful sense of mission. Most corporations are very profit oriented, keep the shareholders happy, and protect your earnings and all of that. Tesla is very different in that regard. They're willing to invest. Look at all of these gigafactories being opened all over the world.
Yeah.
And they have a much higher mission, which is to do the conversion to sustainable energy in transportation. It's there in the Fremont factory in the front lobby in large lettering. Very inspirational company.
Yeah, very much. Super Cape Rock on YouTube says that Tesla bought a lot of German companies' latest. It was
the
related,
latest was related, yeah.
German companies' latest was related to wireless charging. That would eliminate charge cords. I bet Apple Car is wireless. I've even seen something about in the press rumblings about Tesla going to inductive charging and being able to put inductive chargers like a mat that rolls out and lays down on your garage floor.
Right. Now, Niles has an interesting comment about what we were talking earlier about Tesla's unusual approach to marketing. First of all, we don't have a marketing department, but we'll do crazy things, right?
Yep.
So he says, to not pay for advertising is simple. Just do something silly or unusual, giving journalists enough alibi to write about it, and then they will come running. Totally true.
It's totally true. You think about, if you look back 5 or 6 years, what is one of the memorable things that you've heard Tesla do? Well, I'm thinking, okay, Elon was smoking a joint on a podcast, and it wasn't just a talking podcast. It was
mainstream Joe Rogan.
Mainstream Joe Rogan video, and they're both of them lighting up a couple of blunts, and it's marketing. It brought all kinds of attention to him, and he is obviously of the mind that all attention is good attention.
Yeah, Stephen Jobs was the same type of personality. He was a showman.
Yeah.
The earlier versions of that were people like P.T. Barnum.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah, good call there, Niles.
Super Cape Rock on YouTube says, we all enjoy your EV history lessons, Pete.
Oh, well, thank you. And I have a lot of them, too. TikTok, Gem Sent. I recall Lotus had some involvement developing the Tesla chassis, going back a decade at least. This is probably something we should talk about. The relationship between Tesla and Lotus was at times tenuous. They and I don't know the reasons for it, but at least the old timers at Tesla talk about that. But at the same token, Lotus was there guiding them through a number of different processes. Let's remember that Tesla was a new startup. They had never made cars before. Even the engineering was an issue for them. And here you had Lotus, a mature auto manufacturer with years of experience under their belt. And there was a bi-directional process of education that took place back then. So having said that, Lotus is very much part of Tesla's success. Without the Tesla Roadster, without the Tesla Roadster, Tesla would not exist today.
Right.
And you can go a step further. The EV revolution would not have occurred or as quickly. And, if you try to figure out who might be the other players that would have launched the EV revolution, on that landscape back then, I can't think of one that understood its potential. GM built the EV1, killed it. And the CEO even said there's no future in electric cars.
Yeah, even Nissan with the Leaf that came out in 2010. I'm sorry, Nissan is too set in their ways. They're not going to be the groundbreaking, revolutionary type of company that Tesla is, and you can see that based on the fact that Nissan hung on to the Leaf for 12 years before they put out a new product, and they are one of the last ones to come to the market with a new product.
Yeah, and Toyota, they introduced and owned the hybrid market, but they missed the whole point. The migration to electric should have continued rather than continued with hybrid and eventually now hydrogen,
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a rant coming there. All right, we're going to wrap up here, it looks like. YouTube, Anthony Venditti says, thank you, guys. You're more than welcome. TikTok, Van Goatwagon, he said, I hope Elon has his sunglasses on. I've seen him wear those from time to time.
We do too.
Don't know if it's inspired by us, but it could be. YouTube, Hireland Apparel. He says, no, please no, with regard to Corey. Yeah, I agree with you. Facts will begin to emerge, and it may be benign. We'll find out.
I'm hoping that that he's leaving amicably on good terms, good opportunity for him personally. I'm sad to hear that that's happening.
Yeah. And both of them, they're fine, decent human beings. I've gotten to know them through our social media exposure with them. And but anyway, we'll just have to wait until the details come out. YouTube, Super Cape Rock says Tom Cruise glasses ? Yeah, I suppose so. Aviator style.
Yeah, kind of. Super Cape Rock also says, if you wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you know what you are? Now,
I've got the answer.
Are
you guys ready for it?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm ready.
No, give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
His microphone. I thought that was part of the joke, and I'm going, all right, can I connect with this, right?
Yep.
So the answer?
It's not working.
The answer is European.
European.
Oh, okay.
European.
Okay, yeah. Cape Rock, that was a good one. I'll use that with my kids when I get home.
Oh my goodness. They watched a little bit too much of our punny episodes, Richard.
I actually had one for you. Did I ever tell you guys about my fear of elevators?
No.
No.
Well, I'm taking steps to avoid it.
Okay.
Yes. Highlander Apparel on YouTube. I bought my daughter and niece's sunglasses. Yes. Even Penny their dog to watch EV shows.
Now, that's a statement we're going to have to memorialize. Thank you very much. Yep.
Yes. Asset Farmer says, your topic is a whole lot of software and the natural progression is this software crypto. Stay tuned in.
Okay.
We will do that. And then Highlander Apparel again on YouTube says, I rely on you guys for my info on AI. I'm an info junkie.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. YouTube, Highlander Apparel again. None of this is new. Read Popular Science 1958.
And then below that, you'll like that next one, Pete. That's our Sunday show.
YouTube, Highlander Apparel. Love the Sunday show, and I identify as a Roman Catholic. Okay. It is not, let me go on record here. It is not our intent to disparage any religious belief systems. In fact, that's the fabric that holds this humanity together. Without that, it would be anarchy. So it is not our goal to disparage any kind of belief system, but we do have to recognize that there is a new belief system coming, and it's coming rapidly, and we need to figure out a way to adapt and integrate without melting down.
Sure.
So that's the basis of the show that Jesse and I do Sunday.
Danny Ames on YouTube also says Tesla culture and Elon wield a very strong reality distortion field. There's a little bit to that when you think about it. Where you say black and Elon says white, and pretty soon you say white because Elon.
Because it just became white.
It became
right?
white. He is what is it that Thanos on the Avengers says? I am inevitable.
Yeah. Well, and it's odd because Elon, he never associated with Steve Jobs. In fact, they were different generations, I believe.
Yeah, they're almost completely different generations.
All right, YouTube, Grace the Grace. No, I'm sorry. Crunch the Grace Hopper. Sorry about that. I'd like to keep the FSD from Elon's amnesty program, but need to take delivery before October 1st.
Yeah, and Crunch, what I had heard in the press is as long as you placed your order before October 1st. But if they've changed it, and they may have, to say you need to take delivery, I'm sorry, shame on Tesla for that. That's we believe it's been a kind of a marketing ploy to start with, and to make it that way makes it even worse to me.
All right. Are we at a point where we need to wrap up now, guys?
We got just a couple more and we're done.
Couple more. Okay. YouTube, Danny Ames. He's talking to Crunch to Grace Hopper. He says, haven't had a chance to check. Just got it yesterday. And Crunch to Grace Hopper says, congrats. Highland Apparel says, I loved Sunday's show. Well, thank you again.
Well, speaking of that, I think that's about it for the questions. We're going to be here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight or Mountain Standard Time. Arizona doesn't change time during the year. So we normally run the EV show Tuesdays and Thursdays. Wednesdays is our Roadster Roundtable podcast. And then it's Sundays at 10 as well that you're on with Jesse, correct?
We do our artificial intelligence podcast. Yes. Join us. Yep.
Like we said at the beginning, you guys in the audience make this work. Thank you so much.
Real quick, one last thing from Asset Farmer on TikTok. He says, me believing the more gas you burn in your lifetime, the happier. However, I am coming over to your side. Well, welcome over to our side, Asset Farmer.
Very much appreciated.
Welcome.
Yes. We'll see you guys tomorrow if you want to join Roadster Podcast.
Take care.